Today, we're going to give you 8 ideas for Winter Olympic Games for your youth ministry.
Welcome to the Ministry Coach Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Youth Ministry Growth Accelerator. If you're looking to grow the size and health of your youth ministry, make sure you check out Youth Ministry Growth Accelerator at growyouryouthministry.com. My name is Jeff Lascola, and this is
Kristen Lascola, and today we're going to talk all about Youth Ministry Olympic Games
Winter Edition. Winter Olympic Youth Group Games. There we go.
Yay, that's why we're all dressed so frosty.
It is 64 degrees outside, but in my heart, it's a lot colder. I don't know what that means.
Our house is cold,
so
this is fine. Our house is very cold, very single pane window home. And we did Summer Olympics. So if you did that, comment in the comment section. I would love to know how that went or what games you used, or if you added any games maybe that weren't on the list. I would love to know about that. And if you, this is just a quick little aside, if you never listen on YouTube and you're only listening on like the podcast platforms, that's fine. You're missing out on the very end of the YouTube videos.
They're in the podcast too.
The bloopers?
Add them, just the audio.
Because I always watch it on YouTube just to see how we did. And the bloopers are so funny. And I thought, are people missing out on these? Because nobody ever says anything about them.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like, do they know they're there? Because they're not staged.
Right.
They're real. I mean, sometimes I'm just being a goofball and singing or something. Obviously, that's not a blooper. But yeah, I just didn't want anyone to miss out.
Right. 100% real. Really bad too. So, hey, before we jump in, we have 8 games that we're going to describe for you today, but we also have an additional 4. If you send us an email at ministrycoachpodcast@gmail.com, we're going to send you the instructions for all 8 of these plus 4 additional for 12.
Wow.
Total
12 games.
Yes.
We are just going to do our best to describe them very clearly so that you can play them. So your imagination will fill in the rest. Okay, number 1 is one of my favorites. We actually just played it in October, which I'm kind of bummed I didn't save it for the Winter Olympics. I guess we could play it again in December, or January. Winter is a long time, I guess. So it is ultimate hockey. So the way that we play it, and again, any of these games, if you don't love exactly how we describe it, tweak it just to fit however you want to play it. It's totally fine. Hopefully these will just brainstorm for you. So what we would do is get 2 teams and we would line up 10 players per team per round at a time. So let's say we have a red team and a blue team. The red team would be 10 people playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They would all have a number. Same with the opposing team. We would have hockey sticks. They would already be holding them.
And you use specific hockey sticks. These aren't like the full regulation size ones.
Good point. Yeah, I use ones that are a little shorter. They look like for younger kids. They're just a little safer. Now, the biggest thing with hockey is you have to make sure you don't allow any high shots. I don't know the technical term for it, but I just don't let kids swing above their knee because that's a good way for a kid to lose a tooth. So
youth ministry doesn't need any more reasons for kids to lose
trips to the ER and injuries. So if your number is called, you take your stick and you run to the middle where there's a ball. We usually play with a lightweight ball that you would see in like a ball pit. We just ordered a big bag of those off of Amazon years ago. They come in handy for so many different games. So I'd highly recommend it. We just put one of those in the middle because if you get hit with one of those, you're going to be A-okay.
Yeah.
And 2 goals, the first team to make the goal wins, and that's the round. And then everyone lines back up and you call the next 2 numbers. You could call 3 numbers. You can call 4 numbers. However quickly you want the rounds to go. You could play 1-on-1. I just feel like it depends on how many kids want to play. So if I'm only playing 10 at a time, but I have 40 kids per team who want to play, I'm probably going to be calling at least 3 or 4 numbers per round to make it run a lot faster. So it is simple setup and easy, and just make sure you have 2 goals. We just use cones. We don't have any fancy goals. Just 2 cones on each side for goals, measured out, and you're done. It's easy.
And make sure if you guys are looking to get those specific hockey sticks, I believe you got them off Amazon. We'll put everything, all the materials in the description below. So make sure you guys check that out if there's anything you need. All right. Number 2 is a bobsledding race. So what you're going to need for these are they called scooter boards?
I've heard them called different things, but I think when we say scooter boards, everyone pretty much knows what we're saying.
The little square, they're like 16 by 12 or something. Then they have little wheels on the bottom. Order some of those if you don't already have them, but you're going to have teams pair up. So there's going to be a person on the sled, and then there's going to be a person helping them with the bobsled, pushing them. So if you want, you can just either make one big track if you have a giant space to use, the auditorium, sanctuary, wherever you guys meet. You can make one giant track all the way around, or you can make it a little more fancy where you have cones set up and they have to weave kind of in and out, and it makes it a little more challenging.
Yeah.
So it's usually just, you probably want to do teams of 2, but when they go through the whole lap and they get back, you can have them switch, and then the rider becomes the pusher and the pusher becomes the rider, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, they could do the whole trek again backwards, like not pushing backwards, but like you make it there, rider switch, and then you like go back through the maze or track. I would really recommend like helmets for this game. I think like just some bicycle helmets. I bought a bunch at a thrift store once and I just kept them in my closet, and everyone thinks like buying something you wear on your head is gross. Lice need a host. You know, I didn't think we'd go there today, but lice can't just live on a helmet. So don't worry.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they have to have a host or they aren't living.
Of course, if one of the kids has lice, it's just going to be transferred right to the next kid.
That's true. That's how you could get it. I thought you meant, I was thinking like people are
sitting
like,
around for a long
I'm not
time.
buying something on a thrift store. But yeah, just keep some lice all around.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Old thrift store bicycle helmets.
Yeah, you're not going to
Gotcha.
buy lice on a helmet, but yes, it could be transferred from one.
There was a
person to
bike
another.
helmet on the lice I bought. I would like a refund, please.
And keep in mind, you can do all kinds of teams for this. So it could be your small groups could be a team. You could do countries. You could theme it just like if your youth group is really into like Disney and Pixar, it could be like themes along those lines, you know, just whatever you guys are into. You can make it fun. You could get like pre-printed little flags and colors. And you know, we had talked in the Summer Olympic episode about the opening ceremonies. Right. You know, if you have your leaders really into it and like, you know, they come up and the opening ceremonies could just be like one like small group leader from each small group with some fun music and background or whatever. So you can go as far as you want on the flair. That's like the creative element that you bring to it to really make this go from just a kid pushing another kid on a wheelie board to like epic.
Right.
And I think that's the art of the games. And we talk about that a lot, but it's like the delivery, the preparation, the theming, the bells and whistles that we put on it. I had a great conversation with a really great tech guy at a DYM conference, Blarg. I doubt he listens to our podcast, but if he does,
Shout out to Blarg.
Salute you, sir. And he was saying, like they were playing this game that had to do with like Old Testament trivia. And he's like, the moment I put on the sound track to the Prince of Egypt, like things got epic. And he goes, it was just music, but it took a trivia game. Like people leaned in and got into it and felt emotion before we even started playing the game. So I think I told him he should do a breakout session because it's the art of the production that we surround these games with. And so keep that in mind as we describe these of how could you make it cooler, extra themed, put the sprinkles on top, you know? Yeah. So anyways.
And this can either be a like standalone night where you kind of do just pick a few of these games and do it, or it can be like a series where you maybe do it over 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever, a competition series in addition to your normal youth group night. Like these would be in place of the games of an ongoing competition series.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, number 3, human curling. We actually play this one a lot. This one is really fun. So what we do is like on a non-Winter Olympics night, what we would do is just every team is a small group, and sometimes we've themed them like so funny, like come up with the wildest names for each team. Every team needs a skateboard or
scooter board.
I've never played it with a scooter board, but I guess you could.
Okay. Multi-purpose.
The only thing I like for a skateboard on this game is you do steer.
True. Good point.
So we draw or we tape off a big target in the corner of one room. So our big multi-purpose room is like a pretty much a perfect square, I guess.
Yeah.
And in one corner of it, we draw like a half target. So there's a curved line on the outside and then on the inside and then further in. So the outside is worth like 100 points. The middle one is worth 200 points. The inner one is worth 300 points. So basically you have someone sit on the skateboard. They all kind of start at the same starting line. And then you say 3, 2, 1, they get pushed toward the target. If they have all 4 wheels in the 100, they get 100 points. If they have half and half, so say you had the back 2 wheels in 100, the front 2 wheels in 200, you would get
150.
Wow, Jeff. Good.
Math.
I was going to say 300, but that doesn't make sense. I was like, because 200 plus 100. And then, the inner, so you can do the points like that, like all 4 wheels in 300. Oh, but what if you have 2 wheels out, 2 wheels in, then you do 250. And the trick with this game is 2 things. Number 1, if any appendage on the rider hits the floor, it's an automatic disqualification. They can't put their foot down. They can't. So the board lands where it may. Like you just keep going. Even if you hit another rider, and
they all go at the same time.
They all go at the same time. So you might hit another rider, which could give you an advantage or a disadvantage because it might slow you down if you needed to slow down. And if you are stopped and another rider comes and hits you, you get kind of knocked out of your target,
or potentially closer too.
Exactly. So it could go either way. And then this one also make sure nobody moves. So when the round ends and all the riders have come to a stop, we have like 2 or 3 judges. Like I'll literally have my face on the ground, like looking at the wheels, like where is every wheel? And then we write down their points, and not until we write down their points can they like get up and go. So the pointing or the scoring is a little intense at the end because we have 11 small groups. So it's like 11 riders are in this target, and I'm like trying to figure out where everyone's wheels are. If you have a smaller youth group, it will probably not be as...
You have 11 groups go at once?
At once.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's wild. We like it. We always like when our games become chaotic.
Yeah. And like you were saying about the skateboards, and that was a good point about the steering aspect. It's really easy, instead of having to buy a bunch of skateboards, just and ahead of time, just ask
that's a great point.
Your youth ministry, just say, hey, we're playing this game. Make sure if you have a skateboard, bring a skateboard.
And most of the time I just have to put out to my leaders like, hey guys, we're playing human curling tonight. And then there'll be like one leader that has 3 and then I take yours. And then, somehow we manage it. So the rider is allowed to lean to steer left or right. They cannot slow themselves down. They can't touch the wheels or put any appendage on the floor.
Okay.
I think I covered it.
Yep. Number 4 is biathlon. So this is very similar to the bobsled race, but what you're going to do is have the rider have a Nerf gun with them. And I think it's probably easiest to use I think it's like a 6 load chamber of a Nerf gun. And then you basically set up tables or something to have little targets on. You can just use something simple like solo cups. Either stack them up or just put one on there or whatever. But as the riders go around, let's say you had 3 tables set up and there's a solo cup on each one, you would have someone maybe get 2 shots and they go to the next target and 2 shots, and then the next target 2 shots, and then they come back. And then you have those people switch where the pusher becomes the rider becomes the pusher, and then you start riding it around again. It's also probably a good idea to have a 3rd person on the team that can go and collect the Nerf darts, because otherwise you're going to have to reload, or you'll have to reload either way, but this will make it a little bit faster so they're not just all over the place. It's also a good idea to buy one of those like jumbo bucket full of those things, so you just have tons.
Yeah, I can never have enough Nerf darts.
I know, right?
Because they're just going to get lost.
But you'll find them throughout years and years and years later in just random spots.
Yeah, like a youth ministry little Easter egg hunt.
Yes.
Like, they're always just waiting to be found.
In the least, well, not when you're looking for them though.
No.
Right.
Later, when you're moving things or... Yeah, behind couches, all kinds of things. Okay, so this one is number 5, the pool noodle hockey. So every player needs a pool noodle to make them go further. And because everyone's sitting down, I would cut them in half.
Yeah.
I think that's the best. So there's 2 lines of chairs, one team on one side, one team on another side, and the chairs are facing each other with about like a foot to 2 feet in between them.
No, more than that. I would say closer to like 4 feet.
Oh, wow.
Because you have your arm's length plus the...
True. Okay, so place the chairs about 4 feet apart.
Facing each other.
Yep. And then you have a wiffle ball thrown into the middle.
Or you could use those ball pit balls too.
Yeah, that would work. And everyone has to stay seated and they're trying to hit the ball into their team's goal, which would just be kind of the end of the aisle one way or the end of the aisle the other way. If they score, they get a point. It's very easy, simple setup. Pool noodles are one of those things that, like, if you don't have them, there's so many different games you can play with them. So you might as well just invest in a big box of them and keep them on hand for stuff like this. But this game is almost no prep and you can play it really quick. And you could put as many people, I guess, as you wanted.
As long as it was an even number.
You know, so if you have a group, like you just want to play with a few, like 15 on 15 or 10 on 10 or 5 on 5 or even bigger. I mean, you could play like 30 on 30. So it just depends the size of your group. Obviously, with 30 on 30, the round will go a lot longer. Right.
And at that point, you can use multiple wiffle balls too.
Yeah,
if you really
good point.
To.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the row of chairs, you can either just put cones and it's like, well, if it goes past it, it's a goal, or you can actually invest in those like simple little soccer pop-up style goals and you can use those too. All right, the next one is number 6, speed skating shuttle relay. That's a horrible name. I'm sure you can come up with a better one. So how do you play that game?
Shuttle. Why shuttle?
Shuttle is the part where one person's going this way and the next person's going back the same direction. That's the shuttle part, I believe.
Okay, so you have 2 teams. Let's say you have 2 teams of 10. So for each team, you would put 5 people on one side of the room, 5 people on the other side of the room.
Facing each other.
In
single file line.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Single file line. So then they would put on their skates, which are paper plates.
Yeah.
They put them on their feet and they have to skate across to their other team member who is on the other side. They get off the skates. The next team member hops on and that team member now skates across back in the direction that first person just came. They hop off, the next person hops on, they skate across until you've gone through both lines, all 10 people, and then the round ends, you get a point for your team. So the rules are the skates have to stay on their feet. You could be as mean as you want here or as nice as you want. Like, oh, the skates fell off, just hop right back on. Or we play some games where it's like, oh, the skates come off, you got to start all over. And what that ends up doing is making students not just like, be a total wild animal. I'm like, who cares? I'm going as fast as I can. The skates are everywhere. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm just running at this point. But the point is to like get them to do a little
right,
like skating across the floor relay. So you might want to keep extra paper plates on hand because if I know students, and I think I do, they destroy things. And so those might not make it through all 10 people.
Right.
And so you want to have some skates for them to put on.
Yeah. And this game works well with if you have hardwood floors, if you have concrete floors, as long as it's polished concrete, I guess. And then it can work on carpet as well. But I think it's better if you use the coated paper plates. It's a specific style, but it's a little slicker from when they're skating across to each other.
Yeah. And if you work with children's ministry too, I think this one could work really well for children's ministry. I don't know that high schoolers could get into this one. I see it being like middle school and below.
You might be surprised.
Really?
I don't know. I could see them liking that.
Okay.
All right.
Prove me wrong.
Number 7. What is number 7?
All right. Number 7 is frisbee curling. So this is sort of the same idea. You could use the same setup as human curling, which is great. So if you're going to play more than one game on that night, keep the target the same. And now, instead of putting everybody on a skateboard, you just hand them a frisbee. Everyone shoots their shot. You're going to need to label these frisbees probably if you have more than 2 people going. So I would just give every small group, every team, however you're dividing
or they could
them.
be just by same color. If you have 2 teams, red frisbee, blue frisbee, you can do that way too.
I was just thinking how we would do it would be by small group, and there'd be 11 frisbees going in at once. So I would need to put a little tape with just small group on there. So everyone gets one shot, and then it lands where it may, and they get points based on where their frisbee is landed. Most points at the end of all the rounds wins. This one goes pretty quick, which is great. I would definitely pair it with another game. I don't think I would make this the game of the night. But if you have a lot of kids who want to play, it goes so quick, everybody can play.
Yeah.
And it's simple setup. You kind of get a 2-for-1 with the setup because of human curling.
Yeah.
So I would do them together.
Another game that you might want to play with that is the next one we're going to talk about. But remember, if you want the instructions for all these games, email us at ministrycoachpodcast@gmail.com and we'll send you all 12 over to you. Okay, this last one is called, this is another one. I don't have a good name for it, but we're just going to call it Cross Country Skiing Partners. Sure, why not? I'm sure there's a much better name than that.
Well, you said cross country skiing. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what it is. And then partners. Yeah. Okay.
So this came from Mario Party, actually. There's a game on there that basically is the same concept, but I'm like, I wonder if you can do this with real life.
And you can. We tested it out.
So basically, you're going to need to go to any Home Depot, Lowe's, some kind of hardware or lumber store, and you're going to buy either 2x4s, and you're going to need 2 per team or per...
Yeah, 2 per team.
Yeah, 2 per team. Or you can get the fence planks. They're like, if you're putting up a fence, they're those things that are about 6 inches wide, and I think they're about 6 feet tall. Those ones work great. Actually, that's what we tried ours on. But the length of the 2x4 is you're probably going to want to have it at least be about 6 feet. And you can explain the rest.
And those become the skis.
Right.
So you're going to have students, you have 2 students go per round, and they're going to you put the planks down on the floor. They put their right foot on the right plank, left foot on the left plank. And then you get some rope, not heavy duty rope, like thinner nylon rope. And you this is like a handle. So it needs to be as long as like from the floor to where their hand is. And they hold on to those. And then they basically lift up their right foot at the same time to take a step. Then they lift up their left leg together to take a step. Right step, left step, right step, until they get to the finish line.
As fast as they can.
Yes. And again, if they fall off, do you want to say, oh, you have to start all over or just get back on?
Another thing you can do is once you get to the finish line, you can have them just turn around and do the same thing right back.
Yeah.
And maybe even have it be backwards if you wanted to, but that might be too difficult.
And like if you want to add in, we played this one game at winter camp where it was almost like a clothing relay. So every team got like a bag of winter clothes. Like they had to put on boots,
ski hats,
pants, whatever. So if you
goggles,
want to add like an extra thing instead of like just them going across, it's like, all right, you have to get dressed, go across, come back, take off your snow clothes, and then boom, first person to do it wins, just to add in a other hustle element, because it is skiing. So that could be like a fun thing for the spectators too, for people who aren't playing to watch them do the clothing relay.
And just an added element of it too.
Fun. So that's
8. So you guys can have, like I said, it's either a one night event or you can spread this out over a series of however many weeks you deem necessary. But these are all indoor games. I'm sure some of you can play outside, but it is winter. I'm sure it's cold where a lot of you guys are. And my hands are sweating right now in these gloves. This is probably a bad
gloves.
idea. Let's do a question of the day and then a community comment of the day, and then you guys can go and do your Winter Olympic event. All right, so the question of the day is, what is the coldest temperature you've ever been in?
Oh, man, I don't know.
You can think about it for a second, because I do know. So I was one time, I believe it was when I was in Chicago, that it got to, I think it was 18 degrees. Wow. I know Chicago can get a lot colder, but when I was there, that's as cold as it was.
That's very cold.
Now, I was also, I don't know if this technically counts, but it's my game, so I say it does. I was in a grocery store refrigerator, like where they have like the freezer or whatever, and that was sub-zero. I don't know how far down, maybe like 20 below or something. But cold is cold. Like once you get to a certain point, it just hurts, and you don't feel whether it's 20 below or 40 below.
So when we went to Ohio, we visited his family, and they have these cows they keep in a
Oh, yeah, that was
refrigerated
pretty cool.
room so that their hair grows.
Yeah.
That was very cold, but I don't know how cold it was.
I don't either.
She told us, but I don't think I've ever been anything less than like in the 30s. I don't know where I would have been I would have been in the 20s. But like it snows at 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
So I would have had to have been in that.
Yeah. So I know some of you guys are probably in climates that are really cold. So what is the coldest temperature you've been in? Okay. This is the community comment of the day. I have to take my glove off because I can't use my phone. This comes from Erin Cole, who's answering the question of what she enjoys about this podcast. And she said, the real practical tips. There is so much general info out there. It's so nice to get some specific ideas and strategies. I love how relatable you both are. And it's always so easy to listen and learn from you.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that.
So many people say that about the practical stuff, which I think that's kind of become what we're sort of known for, which I love because that is exactly what I wanted for so long.
Yeah.
Like how she said, there's so much general info out there. I feel like every time I thought someone was going to give me like how to do this, I'm like, all right, step one.
Right.
But then they would just say something more theoretical.
Yeah, and you end up with a blank piece of paper at the end.
But I'm not smart enough to put theory into action. Can you just tell me how you did it? And then maybe I won't do it exactly how you did it, but at least I'll have some practicum like under my belt and then like adjust it for me.
Right.
But nobody was ever doing that. It was just always like just a vague theory that I think they just assumed I could plug it in for myself. Couldn't. So here we are. I'm glad you feel that way, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. And thank you guys for watching and listening. And we'll see you next time.
Today, we are going to give you 8 Olympic... Well, I hit the table.
More fancy and have combs though.
Let's say that you have 2 teams of
10.
20.
Actually, in addition to bloopers, make sure you send us in. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And that is a blooper right there.